Have you ever wondered what a rhino's horn and the cartilage in your own knee have in common? Well, it turns out they're both these incredible masterpieces of biological engineering. And today, we're going to unpack the molecular secrets behind two of nature's toughest materials, keratin and collagen.
So, on the one hand, you've got the toughness of your hair, which is made of keratin. And on the other, you have the amazing structural strength of your connective tissues, which are built from collagen. They seem completely different, right? But believe it or not, they're both made from a special class of proteins called fibrous proteins. You can think of them as the rebar and support beams of the body.
So that leads us to the big question for this explainer. How in the world does nature use the same basic toolkit, amino acids, to build materials with such wildly different properties? It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Let's find out how it works.
Okay, so the whole story starts with this one class of proteins, the fibrous proteins. Now, these aren't your typical proteins that act as enzymes or messengers. No, these guys are the specialists. They are the ropes, the cables, and the protective sheets of the entire biological world. And what makes them so special is their shape. They're made of these long, stretched-out chains of amino acids called polypeptide chains. Just picture long, durable threads. This structure is exactly why they don't dissolve in water and why they have this incredible mix of strength and flexibility, making them absolutely perfect for construction.
All right, let's get into our first case study, keratin. This is the stuff that makes up our hair, our fingernails, and even the horns and hooves of animals. Its main job? To create tough, protective layers. Keratin's strength comes from this absolutely brilliant design that's a lot like making a rope. It starts small, with just a single protein strand twisting into a spring-like shape called an alpha helix. Then two of those helices wrap around each other, twisting in the opposite direction to form a super strong coiled coil. And then those coils just keep bundling together into bigger and bigger structures until, bam, you've got the final, incredibly tough hair fiber. And this image just shows that principle perfectly. You can see how each level of twisting and bundling makes the whole thing stronger than the last. A single strand by itself is pretty weak, but by the time they all come together and that final filament, the structure is unbelievably resilient. But wait, the twisting isn't the only trick up its sleeve. The whole structure is locked into place by these super strong chemical links called disulfide bonds. Think of them like tiny rivets holding all those ropes together, making the whole thing permanent and stable. Now, remember those bonds? Because they're going to be really important later on. All right, let's shift gears to our second protein, collagen. If keratin is nature's rope, then you've got to think of collagen as its steel-reinforced concrete. It's actually the most abundant protein in mammals, and it forms the literal scaffolding of our skin, bones, tendons, you name it. Now, a single chain of collagen also forms a helix, but it's a completely different kind of helix than the one in keratin. Just look at it. It's this unique left-handed helix that's way more stretched out. And that funky shape is our very first clue that it has a totally different job to do. The secret to this unique helix is in its code, this repeating sequence of 3 amino acids, gly, X, Y. And the most important letter in that code is the gly for glycine. Why? Because glycine is the smallest amino acid there is, and it's the only one that's tiny enough to fit into the ridiculously tight space at the very center of the final collagen structure. And here it is, the final assembly. You take 3 of those unique left-handed chains, and you wrap them around each other to form this powerful right-handed triple helix. It's an incredibly tight, strong twist, creating a molecular cable with just immense strength. So, just how strong are we talking? Well, the source material puts it perfectly. This tight wrapping gives collagen a tensile strength that is greater than a steel wire of the same size. Just let that sink in. That's the power of nature's molecular engineering. It's just incredible. So we've seen the molecular blueprints, right? But how does all this intricate architecture actually affect our lives? Let's connect these tiny molecules to the big picture. This table is a great little cheat sheet for us. Just look at the differences side by side. Different helix directions, different numbers of chains, different repeating amino acids. Every single one of these choices in the blueprint is perfectly tuned for a different function. Keratin is built for tough protection, while collagen is all about that unbreakable tensile strength. Now, let's circle back to those disulfide bonds in keratin that I told you to remember. Because we understand the chemistry behind them, we can actually mess with them. And this is exactly what's happening when someone gets a perm. The whole process is pure biochemistry. First, a chemical, a reducing agent, is used to break those strong disulfide bonds, which lets the keratin chains kind of slide past each other. Then, the hair is put into its new curly shape, and finally, a second chemical is added that makes the disulfide bonds form all over again, but in new positions, locking that curl right into place. But what happens when the molecular blueprint for collagen fails? Well, this brings us to a really famous historical disease, scurvy. It's basically a catastrophic failure of all your connective tissue, and it all comes down to unstable collagen. Here's the connection. The stability of that amazing collagen triple helix really depends on a special modified amino acid. And the enzyme that makes it, well, it absolutely needs vitamin C to do its job. So no vitamin C, no stable collagen. It's that simple. The body's entire scaffolding literally starts to fall apart, leading to all those devastating symptoms of scurvy. It just goes to show how a single vitamin can be the key to our entire structural integrity. So, from the curl in our hair to the strength of our bones, the story of keratin and collagen proves that tiny changes at the molecular level can have massive consequences. It really shows that, in biology, structure is function. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question, doesn't it? As we get better and better at reading these molecular blueprints, what amazing new materials, medicines, and technologies are we going to be able to build next?